Welcome to the latest episode of the Celtic Exchange Weekly. This is Tino, and tonight I'm joined by a full house of James, Paddy and Miff as we celebrate the 3-in-a-row champions of Scotland. Miff, it's been a rollercoaster, but Celtic finally got over the line this week. How big an achievement has it been by Brendan Rodgers and his players?
Hello Tino, hello James, hello Paddy, hello listeners. I would say it's a magnificent achievement. It's right up there for me, given, as I've said before, very rarely do you swing the momentum back so late in the season. When you give up a lead, it would suggest that the team in front's faltering. But I think it also coincided with our best players coming back. When your best players are in the team, you have more chance of winning games. And I think what Celtic did collectively towards the end of the season was keep their heads. Celtic kept their heads safe in the knowledge that they'd been over the course and distance before, and their rivals didn't. It's really just as simple as that.
The players, just on that note, they weren't saying too much. They certainly weren't saying anything controversial or questionable in any of the last dozen or so games, James. They were just very much keeping themselves to themselves and repeating the kind of mantras of one game at a time. That's how we'll approach it. We've spoken in previous weeks about Celtic peaking at the optimal time of the season, though. In terms of the last 10 games there, Celtic won 8, drew 1 and lost 1 for a total of 25 points. Rangers, by comparison, won 4 out of 10, drew 3, lost 3 and ended up with 15 points out of 30. And that's the difference.
That's the story of the season. I mean, I think our run goes back an extra few games before that to like the Bucky Thistle game. I think it was, I can't remember who it was after that. It was Livy. I felt every performance, as much as we were still getting a lot of, we're not seeing 245s here, we were seeing professional performances to get the job done, get the 3 points, get up the road. The post-match, pre-match, all that stuff was so boring, and that's what I wanted from my players, just platitudes and cliches and rattle them out. On the other side, you get Rangers, you pointed out last week, I never really thought much about it, but they lost the plot about that Dundee thing. Just lost the plot.
Yep.
Now it's fine internally to say, right, we're really annoyed with this, speak to the SPFL, speak to the SFA, speak to Dundee and get something sorted there in terms of whatever you need to do. But you don't let that get out. There's so much outside their dressing room that should never have. There is such a contrast between the dressing rooms in that last kind of 10, 12 games of the season. We kept our heads and they didn't.
I think there was a few sound bites. Dessers at one point said they were the best team in the country. Cantwell's never off Instagram giving it all his stuff, and various other things of that ilk, Paddy. It's really put them out their stride, I would suggest. Just in terms of Celtic, though, and that laser focus we had, in all 5 of the post-split fixtures, we've won them all. And over the piece, pretty comfy, actually. St Mirren there was the ropiest of the lot. And Celtic have just shown this real relentless run of form. We won 5 out of 5 in terms of the post-split stuff. And that's the first time we've done it since Brendan Rodgers' first time in charge.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it the first half of the season. We weren't getting the 3rd consecutive victory. It was a bit of a challenge for us. Listen, it's very easy for us to talk about everything that's happened this season, but the black and white of it is that we have had so many hurdles, and everything has came back together at the right time for us. I'm not laying the boot in too much. I still think that this team needs to be ready for this game on Saturday. I still think that the way that they have been playing, and especially the 5 games of the split, that they are laser focused. I really do think that they're going into this not feeling like overconfident. I just think they're motivated, and they're all playing for each other. The celebrations even for each other on Saturday as well. Great to see some of the non-known players getting involved. Siegrist full kit.
Loves a party,
Siegrist. Fair play to them. But it just kind of shows you what the team's all about in a sense as well.
You'll have seen quite notably, and it was been highlighted in the press since, that Odin Thiago Home refused to lift the trophy.
Yeah.
I think that's okay.
I'm okay with that.
He's a
Show
professional.
your motivation.
And I think he's saying, I've not earned that. Hopefully he'll go on.
Yep.
He's got talent, that boy, and we'll see how that plays out. But I think he's saying, I've not deserved the right to pick up that trophy yet. Let's see if he can kick on next year. Just in terms of 2 guys, Paddy, who absolutely do deserve it though. Matt O'Reilly, in the last 10 games, Miff, 7 goals, 4 assists, so 11 goal contributions. Kyogo, 5 goals and 2 assists for a total of 7 goal contributions. And those 2 lads, Paddy, have played as big a part as any.
They've been huge for us, and listen, I think it's fair to say that we all got a bit of a fright in January when the bids came in for Matt O'Reilly. Especially just kind of concerning where our transfer window was at that point as well. We speak about a dip, but again, I think the numbers still back Matt O'Reilly up, that he's had such a consistent season. Why he wasn't Player of the Year in Scotland, I don't know. I said that on the pre-match last week. I still don't understand why not. I think he has been above every single footballer in this league this year on his consistency, and he's not just pulled us over the line. He has laid a platform down for every single player to say, this is who we are. We are the best team in this league, and I think everyone has stepped up in the run-in. I really do. But no more than Matt Riley.
Yeah, he's been the main man. Just a final stat in terms of these last 10 performances. Celtic have scored 3 goals or more in 7 of them. And it's just a real confirmation, James, of the rich vein of form we currently find ourselves in.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot to do with 2 things. It's, as Paddy says, your best players back and seeing what Rodgers can do when the best players are available to pick from. Just so strong. I think a lot of managers other than Rodgers doesn't get you through that really tricky period. Sorry, Miff. They don't. I think he's just a class act as a manager. I think his mental strength and exuding that mental strength into the squad is what's got us here.
And just to further that, Miff, I'm going to give you a quote from Brendan just to make your day.
Please do.
So he says, from the 26th of August, the headlines were negative. I actually showed the guys today, i.e. Saturday, before we came here, the story that was created, the narrative, and all the various people in the various headlines. Some were professional and some were personal. But I've always said that we write our own story, and it's not only a professional sports lesson, it's life. You'll get written off, you'll get criticised, but as long as you stick to your own storyline, you'll be okay. I'll come to you on that, Miff, because I know you've got mixed feelings on Brendan Rodgers, but you cannot deny that he has thoroughly galvanised this side, particularly in the latter half of the season.
Absolutely, and I think that there's definitely individual players who seem to really have thrived, and Riley would probably be the most notable one. McGregor felt a real kind of spurt of improvement the last time Rodgers was here, and has kind of maintained that throughout since. But Riley, just to touch on him briefly, it's one thing to stay after a move kind of falls through or isn't accepted. It's another thing to tellingly contribute towards the end. So I think that shows excellent resilience from him, because there were a few weeks where he was a bit off it, and naturally so. But to go back to Rodgers, that's the reason why there was 3 visits to the villa in Mallorca. That's why he had to be talked out of his semi-retirement, because what you were trying to entice back was someone who'd been over the course and distance and knows exactly what's retired in these, because it is a very unique environment that you're operating in here, and to have someone guide the club through the past, say, 8 weeks, who has been over that course and distance, who knows what to say at the right time, it is pretty much invaluable to Celtic. And I think what you've seen in terms of, you've seen the opposite coming for the other side of the city, where it was a wee bit scrambled and small things were getting to them, like the Dundee thing. Instead, you just get your head down, play the game, get 3 points, go up the road. It seemed to become a sideshow. It seemed to actually embolden Dundee.
Oh yeah,
you know, majorly. I mean, the atmosphere in the night was pretty raucous. You know, so I think as far as Rodgers, I said at the time the wheels could have come off completely, because we were on a bad run and it looked like we were only going one way and it was going to be a continual slide, which can happen sometimes. When you get behind, you end up dropping silly points. If anything, the opposite happened. Rodgers and the squad really galvanised and pushed on, and I think there's tremendous credit deserved to both Rodgers and the players for that.
There's a bit of a cliche in Celtic world, and it's the line that he knows the city. I think it was what Peter Lawwell said about Lenny coming back. But actually, on that note, it's proven vital for Brendan Rodgers, because there's coaches that are potentially as talented as Brendan Rodgers as a coach, but Glasgow's unique. You know, it's that, you know, crazy a city at times when it comes to football, and knowing the landscape and knowing, I've said this before, he knows how to manage that game, as in that derby, pre-match, post-match, and certainly during it.
If you think of previous examples of that, you know, for both teams, if you think of Billy McNeil coming back at a pivotal time in Celtic's history, Rangers were absolutely falling off a cliff and they brought Smith back when he was managing Scotland, which I was raging at the time, because Scotland were actually in a really good place. And then you think of Lennon coming back as well, and I know obviously what happened with the COVID season, but Lennon enjoyed, you know, his team were a great team to watch the season prior with Edward and Griffiths up front. So you can see that it can navigate you through some choppy waters when you bring back that, you know, safe pair of hands, if you want to call it that. I think probably what bothered me more than anything else around Rodgers in the first half of the season was I was just completely perplexed by the strategy.
Why?
Why is he come back? Why is he being given what he's been given? And then the lack of planning around the Asian Cup as well. There was my ire was more around that. I think you can always really accept what you're getting. With Rodgers, he didn't really adapt the style of play to the players that he had. That would be my criticism at that time when we knew we were players short. For example, you can't play the same brand of football with Palma as you would with Idah, because it's just two completely different players. But taking that aside, there's that, and then there's the job of getting the job done and getting the 3 points in the bag and moving on. And James referenced that Livy away game. It all came for that. For Livy away, other than Hearts and the last 10 minutes against Rangers at Ibrox, it's pretty much been job done.
He's managed it particularly well. Paddy, we've spoken about Matt O'Reilly there and Kyogo, two players that have had a huge impact, but I do want to speak about one character who I think it's fair to say he's had a pretty mixed season. He's only made 2 appearances. First one was a 2-0 loss to Hearts in December. The second one was on Saturday, 3-2 final day win over St Mirren. Paddy, your general thoughts on Santa and how he's done overall this season?
Listen, it's been a whirlwind of a season for him. I just think that was just a touch of class. I was a bit when I first seen it, but the more I look back at it, the guys had an absolute field day. The signing across with the league trophy, absolutely brilliant. What a way to kick off the title party. Good idea, Celtic.
So he's an actor called Andrew Bryden. You might have seen some chat in the papers today, and we've heard from behind the scenes that he was genuinely quite upset in December how it all played out. He's played Santa for 10 years, takes it pretty seriously.
You wouldn't expect that.
But he was equally emotional on Saturday at the full redemption. You know, he's now a hero again in the eyes of the fans, and it was just a nice touch. It was a clever touch, and I think it's we slate the PR at Celtic at times, and at times I'd say that's justified. But I thought it was a nice touch, a clever touch, and having the humility to maybe laugh at yourself a wee bit wasn't a bad thing.
No, it wasn't a bad thing, and I can exclusively reveal it got a genuine lol out of me at the time. I was actually killing myself. I was like, that's class, man. Confused my youngest boy, but he's like, Dad, is that actually Santa? I'm like, nah, it's a kid on man, me man.
Is it?
I think so.
Tino just told his name, so.
But I mean, I thought it was in good taste.
I thought it was good.
It's a good bit of self-awareness.
Nice touch, and you know, it was a nice touch on a day of nice moments throughout. No less than Joe Hart getting his big send off. So we've all seen it, we've all discussed it. The Joe Hart banner for his return to the park for the second half, Paddy. He's obviously, you know, keeping goal at that side of the park. Super Joe Hart, massive display, couple of flares, brilliant stuff. And you've seen him getting genuinely emotional. It's been an emotional week for Joe Hart, and he's got more emotion to come over the next 7 days. But he was genuinely taken by it. You've seen him having to compose himself, and you've seen him banging himself around the head just to get back in the moment because he had 45 minutes of football still to play. But the outpouring of love for Joe Hart has been exceptional. It's
been great, and I think well deserved. As I spoke about last week, he's been a credit to the football club, and just the way he's come in and just been such a massive player and a bit of a revival that was needed. I really like. I don't know. For me, I thought there's a brilliant image of him coming out. He's standing in his 6-yard box, and it's just him looking at the display. It's a brilliant picture, and I just thought, actually, when I seen that back the next day, and even all the interviews I've heard, put yourself in that guy's shoes, put yourself in that guy's career. That moment there is the bit he's like, this is coming to an end, but my God, what a way to be doing this. I just think it's a very special moment for him. He keeps touching upon that. I seen the interview with Sky after as well, and you had Chris Sutton, Neil Lennon, basically telling him, don't do it, don't retire. And Lenny came away with a brilliant sentence as well. He says, listen, you're a long time retired. Yep. Make sure you're making the right decision, kind of thing. But I get it, because they're guys that have experienced that. I think we see a lot of ex-players, not just ex-Celtic players, that are all going through different motions in their life at the moment as well. And it's so important to them, that day to day, and that's all taken away very quickly. So he's very self-assured in himself, but I wish him all the best and everything, because he's been absolutely brilliant for us.
Yeah. I just think around Hart, the sentiment towards Hart was quite split. I think it would be fair to say, maybe halfway through the season. I think since he announced he was going to retire at the end of the season, I think it's focused him, and he's probably produced more big moments than he had at any other point in his Celtic career. Yep. But what it's also, you know, it's kind of made the fans aware of, right, the relationship between Celtic and Joe Hart has been one of it's been mutually beneficial. It's given Hart probably the proper send-off his career deserves, given everything he's achieved.
Yep.
But a success somewhere stable where he's played regularly. And for Celtic fans, we don't always get it right with goalkeepers. We've, even through my Celtic supporting life, we've had a few absolute beauties in there. And we were obviously badly burned by Barkas. We'll never get rid of the Baniac. He'll be there until he's 60. So we just needed somebody to come in to steady the ship, and he's done more than that. So I think that situation has been very cleverly managed, but I still believe the time's right. I'm not in the camp that feels that he should be coming back for an extra season. I think it's perfect the way that it's played out, and I think it's the right thing for him, because even something that's simple on Saturday when Bain did come on, and you see the ease, how Bain addresses the ball with his feet, doesn't always pass it to the right person, but how he addresses the ball with his feet. And you look at Joe with the ball, sometimes he looks like quite cumbersome and stiff with the ball. It's just mental that somebody that's been a keeper all those years is like that with the ball at his feet. But I think that's just one sort of telling sign that I think he's, age is catching up with him in terms of how flexible and agile he can be. And for the way things have panned out, from him announcing that towards how he's played towards the end of the season and how he's contributed, I think it's just absolutely perfect.
He kind of referenced that in his Sky interview, saying he can feel things just not being as sharp as they were, and he's going out now on the highest of highs, and if he did even one more year, it could be quite the opposite. And he doesn't want to be that guy, so it's the right time.
I think he said he didn't want to put an onus or a pressure on Brendan or whoever the manager was to continually pick him when he wasn't at his best. And you do see some players hanging on for their life and playing that extra couple of seasons, and it kind of fizzles away. All going well, obviously we've still got this massive final game to come, but it looks like he's potentially going to go out on the highest of highs. Just on that note, so speaking of Scott Bain, he put a message out on Instagram. It was a picture of him replacing Joe Hart at 88th minute, I think it was, on Saturday. And he says, "Special moment, thank you for everything, old boy, huge week ahead." Joe Hart replies, "I've loved every second, what a man, work to be done." And that was his sentiment, and it was also Brendan Rodgers' sentiment after the game, where, listen, it was a day of celebration at Celtic. It was, you've achieved your big goal for the season, but nobody was resting on their laurels. They're saying, yep, it's been great, look at this, but we've got more work to do. We've got a seriously hard week ahead. And I think Joe Hart, as you rightfully say, Miff, his decision to retire and to announce it certainly gave him that focus he needed. But I think you've got a dressing room full of players, Paddy, who have also been desperate to make sure who is clearly a very loved teammate goes out on a high.
Yeah, I think so. And it's come back to that laser focus that we just spoke about there as well. You can see how much it means to all of them. You can see how much Joe Hart means to all of them. And I think that this will be for him on Saturday. I had no doubt about it. Yeah, there's personal gain. There's another trophy in your cabinet. But I think for them, it's to give this guy a brilliant send-off, because he has been so influential for the full squad. I'm excited for Saturday. I am. I think that I definitely have, as a fan, a confidence. But cup finals, I know that anything can happen. We think about the Bobby Madden semi not that long ago, as we've spoke about. And I think that we've got to push on. Thanks, Smith. We've got to push on and just make sure that we do show up and we get the job done on Saturday, and it will be for Joe Hart.
I think so. And from Joe Hart's point of view, James, it must be strange for him knowing that he will never again play another minute of league football. That's him done with all that side of things, and he's now just got this one huge occasion at Hampden to look forward to. He's played over 700 games of professional football, and he's got this one big push left. It was also great to see him stepping into KT's shoes and picking up the megaphone at the end of the game on Saturday.
Yeah, and that's part of his journey at Celtic, or his journey to get to Celtic, where his career was just drifting, and I think he was kind of looking towards being without a club, and he'd been without a club prior as well, a couple of seasons prior to that. So to get in with Celtic and Ange just at that moment, and he was locked in for the start, to form that bond with the fans and finish that with the loudtailer in his hand was just outstanding. But his focus for Saturday will be absolute. I thought one of the real interesting things he said after the game was, seeing you're talking about banging his head, putting himself back into focus, because when you get the emotional side of the fans with his banner and all that stuff, he said that's like, I suppose, like a lot of sports people, there's two people at play. There's me, the person, and there's me, the sports person, and they can be quite distinct. So he's emotionally looking at what the Green Brigade are doing. Then he's like, oh, Joe, the footballer, the goalkeeper, I've got you back in that. And that's the guy that's going to be at the wheel all week and on Saturday.
Yeah, and my favourite thing, just to round up on this, is you'll have seen, I'm sure, at least clips of his 20-minute piece on Celtic TV on Friday night. And when asked to describe Celtic, he describes Celtic as a feeling. You know, it's so hard to articulate, and it must be so hard as a player to have experienced what Joe Hart's experienced, to describe what he's now had over these last 3 seasons. And he said Celtic is a feeling, and I thought it was really strong. And I think you'll hear that quote from him many times in the years to come. So brilliant stuff from Joe Hart, brilliant from everybody on Saturday. The full Trophy Day reaction show with myself and James is available now wherever you get your podcasts or on the Celtic Exchange YouTube channel. Coming up this week on the Celtic Exchange, we've got the Cup Final special. That's Thursday night at 7. Matthew, you going to be part of that? You've not confirmed. The people need to know.
No. I'll not be part of that.
Brilliant.
Also, don't be coming to me with any predictions or anything like that. I don't want to kind of waste the vibe of the show. Oh, I'm awfully worried, boys. This is a positive show. Let's keep it nice and light and positive.
Yeah. So the rest of us, myself, James, Paddy, and I think Asim will join us for the preview. That's on Thursday night at 7 o'clock. Cup final, of course, takes place on Saturday coming, 25th of May. A date synonymous with Celtic Football Club. And the final whistle show, that'll follow on Sunday, time TBC. As always, all of our shows are available wherever you get your podcasts, so make sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify or wherever you listen. That way you won't miss a single episode. Similarly, if you prefer to watch your content on YouTube, then be sure to subscribe to the Celtic Exchange channel for the very same reason. And if you want to show your support for what we do here at the Celtic Exchange, like Kathleen Bonner, like Anthony Symington and like John Hunter have done recently, then please take a minute to visit the celticexchange.supercast.com for details on how you can do so. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll take a look at some of the huge moments throughout the campaign that led to Celtic becoming champions of Scotland once again. Welcome back, folks. Last week we took a look at the key players who have played the biggest part in Celtic retaining the title, and this week I want to take a closer look at the specific moments that have made all the difference. Paddy, there's some big ones to choose from and plenty of them, but I'll come to you first. What's been that big moment for you throughout the season?
So one of the things that we've kind of spoke about is waiting for that moment to click for the starting 11, and we were kind of seeing some performances where we weren't getting the job done. In the first half it was the second or vice versa. But the game I thought that was really kicked off our season was the 6-0 victory against Dundee on the 28th of February.
7-1 victory.
7-1, sorry, apologies.
6-0 half time.
6-0 half time, aye. I'll get my results right.
Lost the second half on each.
Well, we're still in the league, James, all right? No, I think for me that was a game that we've been crying out for a performance like that all season, especially at home, with some poor performances at Celtic Park.
I think we went into that game quite nervy. Like, no nervy, but you weren't expecting necessarily to blow a team away before half time.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we just looked really, really comfortable. And by the end of the night, the second half, I thought, yeah, albeit we did concede the goal, but it was mere consolation for Dundee. I thought that for me really kicked March off in the right way, and we spoke about us getting that little run of form and then the international window coming, and we were all saying it's came at the wrong time for us. We need to kick on with what we're doing, but by God, didn't we?
Yeah.
We'd drawn at Kilmarnock just a couple of games prior, and things were a wee bit up and down at that stage, Miff, as they'd also been in February. You were kind of couple of wins, then dropping points, and it was huge to know that the team were capable of such a win and such a performance at that time.
Was Yang not absolutely outstanding that night?
Probably.
That was the
I
one.
think he was.
Aye, because it was Hearts after that knocked his.
I think he was. He was absolutely unplayable, and I think as well Aberdeen earlier in the season too. He did a similar thing, and as a result, in both games the team scored, a considerable amount of goals. I remember, that's why I was saying, just when you mentioned that, Paddy, really interesting that you did, because the feeling around the club at the time was, maybe we were on a bit of a slide, maybe we'd struggle to play at Parkhead, and playing at Parkhead was becoming a bit of a thing. Parkers. But that night, you look at moments, I'd say that was us playing with the handbrake off a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just think it was sporadic, obviously, throughout the season, but it was games like that kept you believing that, there was something in it. Things were starting to click. Rodgers' message is getting across. More time spent with the players, more time in the training field, more players coming back by that point as well. So, when you go to these games, you want to be entertained, and that night it was a bit of disbelief going into half time.
We spoke about the fact that we've done pre-match shows for every game this season, and we'll continue to do so. But often when we were previewing games at Celtic Park, we're saying we've been a wee bit sketchy at Celtic Park. We're not quite firing on all cylinders. There was some cheap draws, Kilmarnock, that very month, for example. But what you seen that night, Paddy, was obviously Celtic coming up against what has proven to be a pretty decent Dundee side this season, a top 6 Dundee side. But it was the moment, if we're talking specifically moments here in this section of the show, it was half time. You're 6-0 at half time, and it was just the roar of approval and support as the players were making their way off. And it was almost like, there's been this up and down, certainly first half of the season, in terms of Brendan Rodgers coming back. Has he been fully accepted? What we're watching here, the horseshoe of doom, this turgid football. And all of a sudden,
I remember it well.
the shackles were completely removed. And I think it was everyone in attendance that night just realising there maybe was something here to get excited about. And it was full approval for Brendan Rodgers and his players.
Well, if you think back to the point that Miff made in the first part of the show tonight about, buying back into Rodgers, he's changed it back to his system. You've then got a full squad that have been playing lovely football under Postecoglou that have now got to say, well, hang on, we need to play under this new manager. He's not playing the same tactics. There was a few eyebrows raised where we're thinking bring back the inverted fullback. Now, he has relaxed at a little point, a little bit of the season.
Anyway.
Say again?
Taylor does anyway because he fancies it.
Oh, of course, aye. But I think that flexibility has been allowed. I do. But the thing for me is that he mentioned something at the post-match conference the other week, and it was about we have just kept chipping away at it because he's not going to like back down. He's not going to say let's go back to the old way, guys. Mm-hmm. He's saying this is how I play football, because what that doesn't only just tell your team this is what you need to buy into, this is the level you need to be at. It also tells the board this is the quality I also need to come in as well. He's very clever in that. I think he really exposes his team in terms of its depth and strength in all positions. And I even think that starting lineup on Saturday goes to show that a little bit as well. Here's the guys that are here, but we still need better.
I know he's kind of saying, this is how I set up, this is how I want to play, but you can see there's weaknesses here.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's what summer's all about. We'll not be discussing any of that today, but in the coming weeks, it's a huge summer for Celtic, isn't it? So there's lots to cover there in terms of the recruitment and what we're going to do. So, so Paddy, for yourself, the moment is Celtic v Dundee, the 7-1 game, and maybe specifically the reception at half-time as the players were roared off.
It was class. It was class.
It was class, and I think a lot of things clicked for us that night, but also, you think about the result, the following days later, obviously we had the defeat at Hearts. I don't think there was many Celtic fans that were worried after that.
Aye, and normally you go in and dig into that and analyse it. You just went, that's just a total misread, a misnomer kind of thing. Get on with it,
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah. Whereas by comparison, Rangers dropping points to Motherwell was inexplicable.
Aye.
Yeah, it was hard to work out, wasn't it? James, I'll come to yourself. What's been the big moment for you? I think you leaned towards it last week, if it's the one I'm thinking of, but tell us what's your big moment of the season.
So Hibs away, there was a lot going on there. Idah announced himself on the stage for a start. In a title win, there's a lot goes into it. The management, the fans playing their part, the football, the really good football that you can see at Celtic. But in a tight title race, the one thing that differentiates from your competition is grit. And that's a game where we showed grit, and it was Tony Ralston going for that ball against Youan. And Youan is about an 80-20 favourite. And every yard he's making towards the ball, Tony's getting about 4 or 5 on him. And by the time he gets to it, it's like, my ball. That's the ball that gets us into the box, that gets Kyogo fouled in the penalty, and then Idah slots that home. And that's us. We're often running towards the title at that very moment. It's funny, he's not the most fashionable footballer, I would say, in terms of what he brings to the team, and Johnson's, probably rightly favoured. But I just love Tony Ralston, love his attitude. And I think you can't do without someone like that. You can maybe have too many of them, but you need 1 or 2 of them in your team, and he just showed everything. I mean, the fans were just going bananas. I'm sitting in my house watching that, going bananas, just outstanding. Go on the bricky.
I think a lot of folk will be equally delighted to hear that, and they'll see that as their moment of the season. I've seen some noise about it last week, and I've watched the highlights of that game again today, just in anticipation of doing this tonight. And you're bang on, 80-20 at least in Youan's favour. and he's seen this madman for Bellshill running towards him and thought, I'm going to skip this.
Nah, you're all right.
Ralston smashes through him. I think it eventually breaks to Liel Abada, who plays it in a Kyogo, who works the 1-2, I think, with O'Reilly. It is the tightest of margins in terms of being in the box, but it is a penalty. And then Idah, to absolutely cement his place on the big stage, shows all the composure. By the time he takes the penalty, it's the 92nd minute, Paddy. And at that point, again, likes of in March, so the date of that game, I've got it here, it's the 7th of February. We were having a couple of bumps at that point, and that was huge. I was there that night with Paul, good mate of mine, and the feeling actually leaving the ground was, it wasn't great, but you'll take the win in any way it comes, and it's proven to be so important.
We've had so many pressure points this season, and I think absolutely a brilliant example of one of those points that is potentially won as a league. I think about the games where, even for Park, I think about Ibrox. It's been a nervy season, absolutely, but there is something there. It's just I always go back to that time when Jota was talking about the game it clicked for them under Ange Postecoglou being that Betis game. I think that this team's just been waiting on it. I really do. I just think there's been hurdle after hurdle. But what a time to click. As this guy said, a team has peaked too early. And to say that with 2.5 months to go in a season, it's unheard of.
Yeah,
absolutely. But Tony Ralston, huge moment for him. So 7th of February, we'd drawn one each at Pittodrie just a few days before. I think Nicholas Kuhn got the deflected equaliser on the day after Majovski had scored against us again.
We were awful that game.
Aye, maybe the worst.
Oh my God.
Maybe the worst of the season.
Awful against Aberdeen, not great against Hibs. As I say, I watched the highlights back, right? At one each, there's some big chances for Hibs. So Dylan Levitt scores the equaliser. There's an overhead kick that Joe Hart does well to save. And who's their right back? Is it Miller, the Australian guy? He has a serious chance at the back post, and he's screwed it by our goal. We were living dangerously, and we've managed to get the win. And it can't always be pretty, James, but it was just so important to get the 3 points that night.
No, and it was also the epitome of Liel Abada, and a sad end. I was a big fan, but that's one of the worst performances I've ever seen in a Celtic jersey. It really was.
I thought he'd at least a score on Hibs that night.
I mean, you saw it immediately after. Rodgers just went, right, in terms of protecting the player, because his head was just all over the place. I think Celtic handled that extremely well, took him out of the firing line, and then just started working the move and got him out, kind of thing, because it was such a shadow of the player he was, but he was a big part of how bad we were that night, because they're the kind of guys you need. But then he was part of the goal, still contributes.
Yep, small part. But yeah, a big moment. So James has gone for the Tony Ralston tackle v Hibs back on the 7th of February. Miff, your own big moment of the season?
Mine's is Adam Idah's double for Park. I was there, and when you mention abject performances, that first half was right up there with Aberdeen, with Hibs, with Hearts at home. It was even, I think we played Ross County as well. We won 1-0, and County, I'd actually go as far to say County were the better team. But the first half against I actually think, if you think of our season, peaks and troughs, I think that was the bottom of the trough around. Had we lost that, or lost any sort of ground by that point, Rangers were getting a bit of momentum up. It may have been
too much,
impossible to recover. But the minute Idah stepped on the park, the minute the team stepped on the park, to be fair, completely changed. I think it brought Vickers on for Navrocki as well. Bit more purpose, played a bit of football, and really had Motherwell hemmed in. It was just a surprise it took as long to score the kind of second and third goals as we did. But Idah's double, phenomenal striking, 2 different types of goals. Taylor just chucking the ball in the box, good delivery into the box, and he's got someone there that can go and attack it, brilliant. And then we just ground Motherwell down. We really went for it, and it's a beautiful goal. I think ball for Johnson, and a great front post run for Idah. And then Palmer wraps it up at the end. But I think there was not only a sense of relief there, but when the performance is good, it's one thing winning, like at Hibs, performance is absolutely shocking. Whilst the performance was shocking first half, you knew they'd played well second half, and you're like, right, hopefully that's us drawing a line under the nonsense that's went before, and we're just going to move on. And I feel if you look back at the results, Hearts aside, we really did.
Yeah.
A lot of folks have spoken, and Paddy mentioned it just there, about the lack of ability throughout the season to put in what you'd call a 90-minute performance. And I think that particular day at Fir Park was the epitome of that. First half, woeful, just really poor. Then we make the changes at half time. Idah comes on at half time for Kyogo. It's as good a header you'll see anywhere, at any level. It was a brilliant header, and Chris Sutton former number 9 for Celtic, was glowing in his praise of Adam Idah for just how great a technique it was. But that in itself, that goal was in the 51st minute, so he's come on half time, scored pretty early. It's the 92nd minute before he scores his winner, a very different type of goal, as you say, Miff. And then Palmer puts the icing on the cake. Pat, I think it was you and some of the boys had said that this season's been phenomenal in terms of getting over the line, but it's not one you'll be in a great hurry to look back on. I think it's a great season to look back on when you look at the ups and downs, the highs, the lows, the dramas, all that kind of stuff. And late winners like that, so it's the second late winner from Idah that we're talking about. The penalty was the 92nd minute at Easter Road. This is 92nd minute at Fir Park. And I think that's all the drama you come to love now. I'm saying that from a position of strength. We know the title's in the bag.
Because you know the ending.
So I know the end result, so it's very different. But I don't know if you still get end of season DVDs or something of that nature. Whatever they bring out, I'll be watching it, 'cause I think it's been a cracker.
We certainly wouldn't go to the cinema, we go straight to DVD. No, listen, I get how special it is to get there. I really do. I think that we celebrate the way we did on Saturday. It was a lot of relief more than anything. That's kind of the bit that angers me the most. And I'm not saying it in a negative way. I'm so happy the team have went and done that. And I have looked at the circumstances across the board all season. Definitely things out with our control, but far too many that were on our control. And that's the bit that kind of sticks with me. For me, I will always remember it. It was close. I remember 2 seasons ago, it was also very, very close. And I remember the feeling, because we were the underdog going into that year. We were rebuilding. We still had to get players in the winter window. And we had a massive push in that final 4 or 5 months of the season. Whereas this time last year, we were in such a strong position, a position of strength, a position to add to our team, and we went completely backwards. And that was with signing 9 players. So questions need to be asked about what happened there. And I think that is the bit that sticks for me, is that we put ourselves into that position this year. And I remember reading the comment for David Tanner, only Rangers can lose this league title. Only Celtic could have done that to themselves this season. And if we lost it, we would have deserved to have lost it.
You'd be concerned that the board, they must know they get away with one, but you'd be concerned that they go, but we did get away with it, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest things, either in business or sport, whatever, success is badly under-analysed, because you go, well, we won, kind of thing. Yeah. They need to get right under the bonnet on this and understand exactly what points, what parts of the whole Celtic football machine didn't contribute. We can all see them as fans. Are they going to see them as football execs and change it? Because I totally agree. See, coming from behind in the Ange's first season, that's just brilliant going past Rangers, because they held the trophy. When you hold it and you've got all the money and you do what you did, it's unforgivable. If we'd lost that title this year, it would be unforgivable.
I'll put this to you, right, and I'm not sounding entitled at all. I know how important it is to go and win this league, and I know exactly how much it takes. It's not easy. We look at the trebles that we've won over the years. That is not an easy task to do. I would never ever say that we should be doing it every season. What I would say though is that look at the way we limped out of the League Cup this season, and look at the way a lot of fans this season have actually turned to the point where they're saying, I'll take the league, I'm happy with that. For me, that should not be the case considering the resources. It shouldn't be the case, and that's where the questions need to be asked for this season. That's the only bit I'm on it. Tino, I will always remember it because we've won another league title and I'm over the moon about it, absolutely. But there's definitely questions.
You young ones and your entitlement there.
It's not
entitled. Move on.
I think it's valid, as you say, James. You've got to analyse success as well as failure, and I think there's learnings for everybody throughout this season, including Brendan Rodgers. You know, he's not been without his flaws, and Miff will remind us of them at different times. But
correct.
I think over the piece, ultimately winning the title is binary, Paddy. You do it or you don't, and you certainly remember the ones that you do with great fondness. But that's the time, improving from a position of strength, and Miff goes on about that a lot. I'll need to check these numbers, but I believe so. We won the title by 8 points eventually, which makes a mockery, doesn't it, of how tight it was and stuff. But eventually, it's been pretty comfy. I think it was only 5 points last year, and I believe 4 points the year before. Yeah. And that's not for me to say that Rodgers is doing such a better job than Ange, but it shows you that over the piece, Rodgers is ground it out at times, but ultimately won it at a pretty comfy distance. Listen, we'll crack on. We've just got a wee bit to cover in this section before the next break. So just to confirm your three moments, your three games. Paddy, again, you've gone for half-time, Celtic v Dundee, the big roar of support. James, the Tony Ralston tackle. Miff, Adam, he does double. That's 2 moments, but I'll give you it.
Thank you.
Adam, he does double against Motherwell. There's 2 other games that I thought you guys might have come up with, and I think it's right to touch on them. They're moments of the season in a different way. You've gone on about this next one quite a lot, and rightfully so. It's Rangers, or more specifically Philippe Clement's decision to go on a lap of honour after a 3-each draw in a game that they had to win. That was huge in terms of throwing their players all over the place and their fans. They were going mental in the stands and trying to work out why they were going mental, but they were doing it anyway. And I think Celtic themselves, in terms of the players, must have walked off and thought, what's going on here? This is ours to win or lose. And I think it was such a huge moment in the context of the season.
100%. I mean, I think it just showed real naivety on Clement's part. But even then, you should be looking, if you're an experienced player like James Tavernier, Connor Goldson, whoever, you should also be going, and if you see that starting, you should be going to suppress that. I mean, you'd seen it a couple of weeks ago when we weren't over the line yet. Maybe it was we beat Rangers or beat Hearts, and there was a couple of fans throwing scarves on and stuff, and Celtic players weren't for picking them up, and that's McGregor controlled. If Clement was stupid enough to get around, the players should have got in the way of that.
I think there's echoes of Gerrard's giving it the big game after beating us in January. And just a complete lack of self-control in a tense situation, which I think itself's pretty telling. Listen, I'm not saying you can't enjoy winning at your rivals or getting a last minute winner, but there's a winning 3 each, but or a moral victory, whatever it may be. But there's boundaries that you stay within that whilst celebrating it, but not over egging it. But it was a full blood and thunder like they had won. Indistinguishable. If you'd seen whether they'd won or drawn it, you would have sworn that they had won based on the fist pumping that was going on. And I think by contrast, if I remember rightly, really sombre tone for Celtic, naturally when you've just had a victory snatched away from you, but it was still a good point in context. We just couldn't afford to lose there. And McGregor was saying a lot of disappointed kind of faces on that bus, and rightly so. We move on. That's the attitude you need to have. Things aren't done. But I think there is a constant need. People, fans of other teams look at us and go, "Oh, you've won the league again. How can you enjoy it? Oh, you must get bored of that. Oh, look at them." But every season we're written off as in, I think Rangers will win the league. Just read any print media. Yep. Read any media. Listen to phone-ins. Everybody's, Rangers have really strengthened this year. But so you mentioned us starting as the underdog in Angie's first season, but we kind of almost get backed into that at the start of every season. The amount of nonsense and propaganda we need to put up with, where it's constant. Rodgers is right to reference that going all through the season. So that's why we never tire of that, and that's why when it gets to these situations, I think Rangers feel a need. They must be getting briefed. Somebody like Clement must be getting briefed. You need to whip everybody up into a frenzy. You have to really give it the big and make out that we're like the moral victors and that we've won the day, and we've won the battle and we're going to win the war and all that nonsense. If they actually just concentrated on the task at hand, kept it in-house and focused in the next game, I dare say the results would be better. But as long as they're wanting to do their ara cheering, then it's fine by me.
I think so. And just to finish on that game, I think if you were a Rangers fan who somehow missed the game and you come back in and you turned it on just as the final whistle had blown, you'd have gone 5-0. Brilliant, the boys have done it. We've absolutely romped it here. And it was just you used the term, it was a misread by Clement and the Rangers support, and I think that's proved to be part of their undoing. The last one, again, it might sound a wee bit contradictory, but it's the 2-0 loss at Hearts, and it's specifically the nature it happened in, Paddy. You've had the VAR sending off of Yang, which is seriously questionable, and the crazy decision, John Beaton inspired, to call a penalty for the ball falling out the sky onto Tomoki Iwata's arm. Go on, Miff.
Missed penalty as well.
Mm-hmm. Of course, we missed a penalty that day, but I think that you could talk about a few moments in terms of that game, but I think, as you say, it's come off the back of the Dundee 7-1 victory, and I think the nature of it, the players will have been angered by that result, and I think that's put fire in their belly. That's the last time we lost. So if you look at form in the end of the season, that game has been huge in terms of just, again, we talk about Joe Hart's decision to retire in terms of giving focus to the group. I think that just refocused the group, and it's been a huge moment. So listen, there's loads to choose from. If anyone's listening at home or watching at home, get in touch and let us know what's been your moments of the season, and we'll be happy to discuss them on a future show. Paddy, to finish off.
One final one.
Yes, Paddy.
The August game. September.
September 4th, I think it was.
Aye, 1-0. at Ibrox. A massive result.
Totally written off.
Massive result.
Again.
That's all.
Again.
Don't need to say any more.
Big Lager Bielka.
Right.
Having his moment in the spotlight. But listen, as I say, lots of good moments and lots of crucial moments throughout the campaign. Let's take another short break. When we come back, we'll bring you the latest instalment of the Mystery Voice. Welcome back, folks. Last week's Mystery Voice very much falls into the category of cult hero, and the clip came from the players' testimonial game against Celtic back in July of 2022. If the answer was, of course,
Artur Boric.
Artur Boric, signed in July 2005 from Legia Warsaw. He initially arrived on loan before making it permanent. He had some massive moments for Celtic, but particularly in the Champions League. He had a huge penalty save from Louis Saha in 2006 to ensure the scoreline remained 1-0 over Man United. Then he had that save in the penalty shootout against Spartak Moscow in 2007 to make sure we qualified for the Champions League once again. And in August 2008, he was fined 50 grand for breaching the club's drinking policy on a pre-season tour over in the Netherlands. So, Miff, the question is, what exactly is Celtic's drinking policy?
Well, I would like to know. Boric was a big favourite of mine.
Oh yeah,
big favourite of mine. And I mentioned earlier there, we don't always get our keepers right. He was certainly somebody that rectified that, and we were stable for a number of years with him in goals, albeit he had his moments. I think there was one pre-season to come back wildly overweight, to which he replied it was grill season. So, but he was a big favourite of mine, and many magic moments. Obviously, Spartak Moscow and Man United stand out.
Paddy, your own thoughts? You're very much goalies union, all that kind of stuff. Would he have been a favourite of yours over the years?
My favourite.
Oh, really?
I really was.
The main man?
Just loved watching him. Everything about him. I think we had a world-class goalkeeper at one point. His distribution, his aerial ability and command of the box was something else. I think back to that Spartak game and just how much the players wanted it, and the fight almost between him and Lee Naylor at one point. I think he had him in the neck, but Naylor replied with it as well. But it was just the sheer relief when they went through, and that brilliant image of Tommy Burns jumping on them as well. Just an incredible time. Boric was one of the best for me. I think, he let it go. I think the City maybe became a bit too much for him in terms of, being charged for blessing yourself for a start. I think he had a fun time here. I think he probably thought a bigger team would have maybe come in for him at a certain point, and it maybe just didn't happen. But I think he could have went to another level. I really do.
Yeah, it was Bournemouth and Fiorentina. Was it Fiorentina first?
Fiorentina, yeah.
And then Bournemouth. And he was well liked down there, and he's played till he was about 40. They only retired a couple of years ago. James, your own memories, a guy you were fond of, I'm sure.
Oh, huge fan. Last of the Mavericks, I would say. You just don't really see that kind of character anymore. Football is a more professional, sanitised game, and you're not coming back with 2 stone overweight and stuff. I thought, just as sheer talent, character, it was the perfect match. He held a lovely mirror up to Civic Scotland, getting warnings off the police for blessing yourself. I think that kind of said to Scotland, is this where you're still at in 2007 or something? It was the linesman giving him kind of pulling one back for handling the ball outside the box, and he didn't because he wanted to see it. All that kind of stuff was going on, and he loved that. He just lapped that right up. So great player, great character. Last of the Mavericks.
Yeah, thrived on the chaos. Okay, let's take a listen at this week's Mystery Voice.
12 o'clock kick-off, red hot. I'm playing. I scored, and then I got a bit of cramp. That's why I come off. I'm thinking, don't want anybody else score, go on.
So, it's very topical. I think I've made it a bit easy,
Aye.
but I'm okay with it. What you going with, Miff? Yeah, 100%. A popular guy, a bit unlucky in terms of injury and the way it all played out at Celtic, but a very likeable guy. So what we'll do, that'll obviously be bleeped out. We'll look forward to discussing him next week's show. And as always, we'll reveal the answer then and share the clip on the socials for anybody who wants to have a go there. To close out the show, with Celtic's participation in next season's Champions League now confirmed, how attractive does the prospect of at least 8 games against top-level opposition make us to any new players that we're trying to attract? What do you think, James?
It's massive. Yeah, I think this Celtic have never had, I'm not saying they won't get it again, but they've never had the perfect opportunity to rebuild their team with what they've got to sell players on. Things like Joe Hart talking about what it's like to be at Celtic, the money we've got behind that, the growing up that we need to do as a team. Rodgers has power within the club that he didn't have this time last year. He's going to be able to flex that. Hopefully, the first thing he does to flex that is put the structure around. I'd imagine that's coming together, and Mark Cooper's part of that. hope it is, so I can renew my season ticket.
Time's running out, James.
No, really.
You are a man under P.
It's half time at Fir Park. I'm struggling.
you have painted yourself in a corner.
I'll
But
do it.
that desperation there around that. Hopefully Brendan can flex his muscles. Please,
For
Brendan.
those listening on the podcast, a bead of sweat is rolling down.
He's going to come back into Celtic Park next week with a fake moustache and a wig and all that kind of stuff. Try and make his way back in.
Lost my train of thought. Aye, and with that, I think we've got to recognise, that we'll maybe come on to talk about it in more detail next week, but the matter really does he stay, does he go kind of thing. I think Celtic need to be the mature ones in this situation and say, do you know what, we would love you to stay because we love you, but it's time to go, because let me finish. The path that a player like that goes on, he comes in for washers and you can get 25 plus for him, and that aids the funding of your next phase, a team that could look after you for 5, 7, 10 years kind of thing. I think we've got to be the mature ones and stick to our policy of buying at a certain level and selling when he hits our target range.
Just before we move on, so obviously a bit of hilarity there, but for anyone who's maybe quite new, we've got quite a lot of new listeners of recent. The hilarity is around the fact that after the January window, James stated quite strongly if there wasn't structural change at the club, he wouldn't be renewing his season ticket.
Was that recorded?
Oh, you better believe it. He wouldn't be renewing his season ticket, and it's caused a lot of debate back and forth. But to be fair, you weren't saying if we don't go and win this league, I'm not back. No. You're coming from a position of strength that Celtic have won the league, and you're potentially still willing to do that. I had to laugh. James and I were doing the post-match show yesterday live at 6 o'clock, and one of the users on YouTube has changed his handle, his username, to James's season ticket renewal. And I think if you don't renew it, he wants first dibs in your ticket.
He can have it.
So just to explain that to folks who are new to it.
Yeah, so that is it. I find I can't go through another one of those windows where Celtic just have two guns pointing straight at their feet.
Well, on that point, when you were speaking about the, potential for the O'Reilly money to come in, it goes back to my point that I made last pre-season. We don't do it. Mm-hmm. We don't put that money into the team. Now, I think this is a tipping point season around how the fans will perceive the board's activity, because 8 Champions League games, untold, guaranteed riches, money already declared as being in the bank. This has got to be the summer. It's got to be the summer we go big. If it doesn't, I do fear that fans will start voting with their feet. Now, I know there's replacement people for, if James, for example, did give up his season ticket, there's another 15 people waiting for that one season ticket. And so if that's replicated across the board, yes, they will fill the stadium. That's one thing. But if people still buy season tickets but then vote with their feet and don't go, that gives the board another different problem like they had with Ronnie Dyler. So for me, I really do think this is a huge summer just to see what the activity is from the board.
Yeah, so we as a group, we'll have this discussion over the next couple of weeks. It's not for today's show, but I've very much fallen at the camp of I'm very much going to give the board the benefit of the doubt in terms of I think they will.
They wouldn't take advantage of you there, no?
No, they wouldn't. No. I think they will do the right things this summer. I think they've seen the season past. I think they will feel they got away with one. But as you say, James, they must now assess this season and go, okay, what's the learnings for that? Am I the only one in the room that thinks that?
You sound like a Rangers fan. Next time they'll get it.
So you're not convinced they'll reinvest?
I'm not convinced.
I actually am. I think it would be so farcical for them not to. But it can't just be a transfer window. It's got to be a structural thing. Sorry, Paddy.
What's your
right.
thoughts?
No. I think I totally agree with you on it has to be structural. Is it the board that's going to do it, or is it Brendan Rodgers? That's the bit for me. And I think that we've seen that with Postecoglou when he came in and saying, there's a lot that needs to be done here. I'm doing quite a lot of work in different avenues of the club. And I think that Rodgers has probably seen that, you know what, if I really need to get what I need here, I'm going to have to be a part of that. I think I think anyone that comes in this summer is a Rodgers appointment, not a Celtic Football Club appointment.
Yeah, and I think Rodgers, what he has done in the last 6 months at least, is he's won back power. He himself is in a more powerful position than he used to be. And also he spoke just in the last week or so about being treated like a novice. I think a wee bit of that is a shot to people internally. I think there's potentially folks on the board that have been divided on it. The chat is he was and is Dermot Desmond's guy, to the point where maybe some guys on the board were keen on Enzo Maresca coming in, or Knutson at Bodo Glimt or somebody else. And I think he's bizarrely, at the age and experience he's got, he's actually had to prove himself again to folk inside the building. But he's now got that power. He's won the title. He'll never be as strong as he is right now as Celtic manager, and that's why I think we will see change. Whether we see enough change for you to renew it, I don't know, but I think we'll see some really positive things in the summer. To bring us back on track though in terms of that question, so we've got these 8 Champions League games, Paddy. That's hugely appealing to any player, whether you're currently at Celtic or you're on Celtic's radar. You look across the board, Man U won't be doing Champions League next season. Chelsea, Roma, Newcastle, Lazio, Ajax, a whole host of big clubs across Europe will not be at this new Champions League format. And that is huge if Celtic go shopping in the markets that we should be shopping in and trying to, make an appeal to a player that we want to get in.
It's massive, but listen, I take what James is saying about Matt O'Reilly, and what we need to do is kind of what Miffs was about to touch on is if you keep a core, if you keep a spine of this team, we are in the next step of a transition. If you bring players in that are going to complement what we need, then for me, Matt O'Reilly's saying to himself, it's kind of what we've spoke about before. If he stays at Celtic next season, he's got another year to go and show himself in the highest level. He's got an extra game to do that as well, and potential playoff games. The way the format's looking, that's what we should be aiming for. And I think then, in the other side of it as well, you're saying, well, hang on a minute, there's a settled team here. Let me come in and be a part of it. We're not just building for this season's Champions League. We need to think about we're playing qualifiers next season as well. So you need the players in this season. It has to be. And me personally, you try and keep what you have that's good at Celtic at the moment.
Just in terms of the Matt O'Reilly debate, so there's suggestions. I think I've seen a headline that Brighton were potentially from.
No chance, man.
But Celtic have said 50 million. I don't know how accurate that is or not. He shouldn't be going to a Brighton. And Matt O'Reilly's got a call to make. So Edward was our best player at one point. He ended up at Palace. That's not a move that Matt O'Reilly can make, I would suggest. And even if he finds a move in top 8 of the Premier League, for example, you're not going to get the platform that Celtic are just about to give you if you want to stay. Someone made the suggestion, or the rumour, that O'Reilly's loosely agreed to stay till January, and if so, you could see perfect sense in that. He gets to compete once again at the top level. Matt O'Reilly or any one of Celtic's current players could move on and never play Champions League again. Yeah. That can be the life post-Celtic. Henrik Larsson's an outlier in terms of going to Barca and Man U. Most players dot around and potentially get a bit of Champions League, but not much. So Matt O'Reilly's got a huge call to make. You've seen him post-match. I'm sure you've seen his interview. A part of it to me looks like he's maybe made a call on it, but he said we've got one more huge game to go, we'll see after that. He's in a quandary, but surely the prospect of 8 games against 8 different top teams in Europe, it must be attractive to any footballer.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about the January option. That's probably not ideal for Celtic though, unless you're bringing a replacement in to work with them, but that would be very un-Celtic-like to go and actually buy.
But Tino says it's different this time.
That's going to be different this time.
Got it all sorted.
I don't have the same faith, if I'm being honest, but that's just because I'm an old cynic. If you ask me what do I think will happen, I think he'll go in the summer. But I wouldn't be against him for all the reasons you've said, staying for another year. Yeah,
I think it's a really interesting time, Paddy, to be around and to follow Celtic because of what's going on. As James said, it feels like a sliding doors summer. There's so much potential to go and do the right things, and it'll remain to be seen whether they do so or not.
Absolutely. We'll be talking to each other about it on the 31st of August, so when the window shuts. We're either laughing, we're happy, we're ready for the season, or
they've done it again.
We're screaming again. And James is like, I told you. No, listen, I think that there has to be a forward plan. It can't just be season by season. I think that's where we've let ourselves down massively. Ended up with a bloated squad because of it. And I know that COVID is a factor. We can't really move players on the same way. But the fact is that that's 4 years ago now, and we've still got players hanging about that we really need to start looking to offload. I do think there needs to be a little bit of that. Some of the wages some of the guys that are on in the background need to go before we can go and really, really shell out. But for me, there's a reason you increase Callum McGregor's wage. There's a reason you increase Kyogo's wage, and it must be the planning is that we're going to need to bring quality in. It has to happen though. You've
got to hope so. And also just the final point is that if at some stage we want to re-establish ourselves in the European game and actually compete, listen, I think we're all reasonable enough to accept that Celtic aren't going to win the Champions League anytime soon, but you've got to at least compete, and I don't think that's beyond the realms of possibility. We showed in flashes last season, 2 each draw at home at Atletico, for example. that on your day you can go toe to toe, and with a wee bit extra quality you potentially win that game. You potentially beat Lazio a couple of times, and we're not a million miles away, but they must strengthen at this point. And at some point Celtic must say, we're not going to just sell our best assets every summer. At some point you need to sit tight, play hardball. That's why you tie these guys up in long-term deals and potentially go on a slightly different avenue in terms of how you approach Europe.
Yeah, I think it's about supporting or supplement what you already have. Quite often what we're doing is replacing rather than supporting. I think the guys in that team deserve support. If you look at the likes of Callum McGregor, Matt O'Reilly, Kyogo, they've been doing a lot of heavy lifting over the past 3 years to take the team, or to make sure that the team is in this new format of the Champions League. We've all had our eye on it for a number of years. It was a really important season this season for that reason, and to get in when we have has not only secured our medium term future, it's also kept the possibility of Rangers getting some form of financial equivalence with us away as well. So a lot was at stake, but it all goes back to, I've mentioned this so many times before on here, we historically don't go all in. We historically don't follow up on our success. We drift. We don't really seem to have a plan other than staying ahead of Rangers, and that is the very fundamental thing that's got to change. It's got to change because we've got to look forward, and we've got to have that 18 to 24 month plan around the players that we bring in, specifically timing, when we're going to sell them on, all that type of thing. There's a good blend in age in the squad, I would say. You know, will this be the season where we keep what we've got and add to it? And then you've got the potential of just trying desperately to do something in Europe.
Yeah. I think with all that there's no Celtic fan I know that is clamouring for reckless spending and, you know, just unsustainable financial extravagance, because we've seen that across the road where that leads. Nobody's looking for that. We're looking to use the money we've got. If you look back the last 5, maybe even 10 years, and you take Celtic's average turnover, that's what you're looking to say, that's our benchmark. You can pretty much predict that. Here's the money in the game now, blah, blah, blah. We augment that with a huge player sale every 18, 24 months, blah, blah, blah. That's where you make your numbers from, and then you budget accordingly for that. I mean, just playing about with numbers and stuff, once you take the bloat away, you can actually take the squad cost down whilst improving it massively with, you know, senior players, and use your capital money you've got in the bank to buy those players. You know, you don't need to be doing stretched out deals if you've got cash there, if you're not going to leverage it and stuff. But we don't want anything crazy, just sensible spending of the money we've got.
Yep. Wait till this summer, lads, when they blow us all away. These will be absolutely buzzing with what we do. Okay, just to move on, and as we start to wrap up the show, definitely, you know, another big highlight of the season was the Celtic women team winning the SWPL trophy for the very first time in their history. You'll have caught all of this yesterday, but led by Elena Sadiku, a winning goal miff in the 90th minute, scored by Amy Gallagher, great granddaughter of Patsy Gallagher. And I said to James, we covered it yesterday, but another huge buzz, a huge plus in the context of the season, and just continues a feel-good factor around Celtic.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was, you know, because it went so late in the game, I think Rangers were winning comfortably. They were winning comfortably, so it was kind of all on the line. But they had heartbreak last year because of the way events unfolded at Ibrox with Glasgow City. So it's excellent for them. It's just a shame we Fran's no there with his white suit to enjoy it, because he laid a lot of foundations for the women's team. But no, absolutely delighted, and continues that sort of. I mean, some of the guys, like the Celtic Twitter guys, had been following Rangers fans' reactions on some Rangers boards, and it's quite remarkable reading. I mean, I probably wouldn't repeat any of what I've read on some of the screenshots that I've seen, but if you're looking for a laugh, I would go and dig them out on X, formerly known as Twitter.
I think they're getting quite upset about it.
It's quite unbelievable. But as you see, Tino, momentum, feel good factor, it's all round about Celtic at this moment in time.
Yeah, and it's the first time in history that both the men and women's team from the same club have been champions at the same time. So a great moment. Fran Alonso, you mentioned, he tweeted about it yesterday. I'm pretty sure he was in the living room with the white blazer on, cheering the girls on from afar. Paddy, just last bit of news. Neil Lennon back in the game as manager of Rapid Bucharest in Romania. It's an interesting move, isn't it? But it also seems, you know, we've talked about Brendan Rodgers' redemption arc. Lenny's in the same boat. You know, most people, I think, have just about forgiven him for the 10. I didn't have an issue with it. But I think Lenny's back in the gang. And good luck to him. He's joining a club who have lost 8 of their last 10 games. So he will have his work cut out for him out there. But I think most fans would wish him all the very best.
Yeah, yep. Always wishing Neil Lennon the best. I think it's great that he's looking to just get back into management again as well. I wish him all the best with it. I think obviously his move in Cyprus wasn't, the best. A good result against Manchester United. Incredible result when you think about it, comparing the budgets of both teams. But I still think, I don't want him to end up with a bit of a journeyman career in the management side as well. He's a very good pundit, Neil Lennon, and I'm not saying that's your level, but I wish him all the best over in Rapid. But I think that, with Rapid, I think that it's a little bit of the unknown. Kind of have to take your hat off to him for going and giving it a try. Brilliant city, by the way. Great city. Aye.
Let's go and catch a Rapid Bucharest game, Paddy. We'll make it happen during the season.
They'll be dancing in the streets of Rapid.
Absolutely.
No, it's an interesting move, and as I say, best of luck to Lenny out there. James, your final comments for the week.
Well, we got here. Now we need to get there. So I was one of the ones, Paddy, at the start of the season that said, just give me league, because you knew financially they wouldn't get to us and it would tear us away from them. But now I want the cup. Of course I do. In fact, I want the League Cup as well, but didn't get that. So it's when Saturday comes and it's going to be great. Can't wait.
Paddy, your own final thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of echo that for James there. I just think, go and wrap up a good season. We're still winning trophies consistently here at this club, and I think that's the big thing for me. You're talking about just even reading those little bits of pain for yesterday on some of the forums. Keep it going, because
more pain, please.
More pain, please. And I just think that we're approaching records that they do not want touched, and they're about to lose everything in terms of their bragging rights shortly as well. So just keep the foot in the gas, Celtic.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll see yourself, Paddy, and James back on Thursday for the big preview of the cup final. Miff, I won't see you. So your final comments, at least for now.
No, I'll be hiding. until kick-off time. It's just absolutely amazing how this season's turned out. And at one point, you would have absolutely bitten the hand off. Going for a double. You would have thought it was inconceivable at one point this season. But I get the feeling that, I know the Merchant City was quite extravagant in terms of the celebrations, but I think the majority of fans and the players seem to just be holding back a wee bit because they recognise the significance of the game coming in Saturday. There isn't a huge amount of triumphalism just yet. I think Saturday was a day to be enjoyed and everybody did enjoy it, but I feel there is a real focus just about the whole club for fans and players around this game that's coming up on Saturday, and I think it's something to be admired, and you just never take these things for granted. It's one thing like kind of winning it for yourself. It's another thing stopping Rangers as well. That's how Glasgow is as a city. If you're not winning, you're losing. It's as simple as that. You're losing to your biggest rival. So I'm actually excited for Saturday, but very, very nervous, as I always am. But what a way it would be to finish the season. Glorious day at Hampden. Go out there, get the job done, and then we can properly celebrate.
And seeing as you're not joining us on Thursday, can we put you in the spot for a scoreline prediction?
No. Come on.
2-0 Celtic.
2-0 Celtic. We'll take it, Miff. We'll take it.
Didn't see that coming.
After extra time.
Don't.
And he's back. So that wraps things up on this latest episode of the Celtic Exchange Weekly. Thanks to James, Paddy and Miff, and thanks to you for tuning in. Don't forget to join us on Thursday night for our special cup final preview, and to visit the celticexchange.supercast.com if you want to show some support for what we do. But in the meantime, as always, thanks for tuning in to the Celtic Exchange, and we'll see you again very soon.